Similarly, when you say, so-and-so's in hell, that's only comforting if the person in hell is the person you knew when they were alive. Because if some spirit entity who has no connection to the physical form you knew when in life goes to hell, what's the point of that? I mean, when someone says, I'm so comforted by the fact that Osama bin Laden is in hell, it only works if Osama bin Laden, as we know him, is in hell. Or if you believe that he was a martyr to the cause and he's in heaven, that only works if it's Osama as you imagine him, as a real real psychological entity. I don't believe in any of that. I think it's all God, the good and the bad, and it all goes back into the divine sea, and the divine ocean keeps waving.
So then heaven and hell would be
figments of the ego's imagination, fear, concepts that we invent, that the ego imagines to keep from having to face the fact that it isn't, and that we aren't who we think we are. And the same thing with reincarnation, that there's some comfort in, when someone says, well, I lived past lives, the key there is I lived them, and I will have future lives. So there's the capacity to find comfort, and I get it, I just don't believe it. And I don't, when someone says it, I simply accept it. I'm not going to challenge somebody's theory here, unless that's the setting where we're asking for that. But if someone says, I lived past lives and I will have future lives, the operative word there is I. There's a comfort in that I am not going to die. So I think that's why we have those theories, is that the ego doesn't like the thought that it's temporary. But my belief is, and my experience in meditation is, that the ego is in fact a temporary manifestation of something far greater, and the far greater doesn't die, but it's not me the way I think of me.
So in essence, there is something after the me or the I diminishes, but it's not the personality, or it's not the ego.
Right, it's
God.
The ocean continues after the waves have...
So you're not saying what some say, which is there are those that believe there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. There's darkness, there is blackness, it is the end, and there is nothing.
Yeah, of course, if they really believe there's nothing, you can't say darkness or blackness.
Right, true.
Even that's a concept. But,
true.
But yeah, I don't think that. I think that the universe is a dynamic, creative ebb and flow of the divine reality. All this is just talk, right? But it's that dynamic ebb and flow of the divine reality, and it's me for a while, and it's you for a while, and then it's not, and it's something else, and the reality itself doesn't birth or die, but birthing and dying is a constant happening within it, and that's true not just for people, but for planets, galaxies, everything.
So what's the purpose of all of that in the end, according to what you understand?
Yeah, I don't think there's a purpose. I think it is its own purpose. If we say, life has a purpose, the purpose is other than life. I think life is the purpose. I think that it's the very nature of this divine reality to manifest life. And that's what it does. That's its purpose, if you like. But there's no additional purpose. I'm not here to achieve anything or learn anything, or, my life in this body is best served if I can realize who I really am and not who I think I am. But that's not the purpose of life. The purpose of life, it's like the sun. What is the purpose of the sun? To shine? Well, if you want to say that, then I would say the purpose of God is to create. But it's the nature of the sun to shine. A sun that doesn't shine is no longer a sun. It's a black hole. So it's the nature of the sun to shine. It's the nature of the ocean to wave. It's the nature of God or deity or Tao or reality, ultimate reality, whatever you want to call it, to manifest infinite possibility. And that's its essence, but not necessarily its purpose.
What's the one main resistance that you run into with what you know to be true?
With my opinion. It's not comforting for many people, most people. To me, it's comforting, which is why I hold to it. I think most of us, even if you believe that the end is the end and it's darkness and blackness, like you said, somehow that's comforting. I don't think people hold an idea that, oh yeah, I believe this, but it's awful. most people don't go that direction. So I find it comforting. But most people that I talk to don't. If we're all manifestations of God, then it wouldn't be a stretch to say that all experience is present in that timeless reality of the divine. So I may, through meditation or just active imagination or different ways of utilizing intuition, I may tap into memories that are in the divine field, but they're not mine. The problem is we, as egoic beings, we claim everything as us. So, I mean, there's this interesting, I was at Vanderbilt once where they were giving a seminar, or listening to a seminar on free will. And this guy told this amazing experiment. It's similar to that show, Whose Line Is It Anyway, where the two comics, one would stand up and the other would and put his hands behind his back, and the other one would stand behind him, and she'd put her arms through, and then she would do funny things, and it was just sort of silly. But they've actually done this experiment where the two people doing it both wear white lab coats, and you're standing with your arms behind your back, and the other person has their arms coming out and doing whatever you're being asked to do. And then after a couple of minutes, the experimenter asks the person standing there doing nothing why you picked up the coffee cup. And instead of saying, well, I didn't, the person behind me did, they come up with a whole story about why they did it. But they didn't do it. They're just, their brain is designed to lay claim to things that we had nothing to do with. So I think that's what happens to us when we pick up these other memories, that we lay claim to, oh, I was Cleopatra. Not really, because you only exist in this little time frame. But the divine was Cleopatra, and so maybe you tap into that that memory stream, or what Rupert Sheldrake calls the morphogenetic fields, where all memories are stored. And the more people who learn how to ride a bicycle, it makes it easier for the next person to learn how to ride a bike, because we tap into bike riding memories or something. You know, I don't know how all this stuff works, and I'm not wedded to any of it. I mean, this stuff I find really fascinating. But what's important is how, I live my daily life. But without being wedded to it, I do find the ideas compelling. And they allow me to keep to the notion that I'm not this egoic being that I imagine myself to be, without having to deny the evidence that seems to be there, that people use to support reincarnation or other things.
So would that be sort of looking at it from a very broad perspective? There's the collective, which could be God, is the collective, and then there's the individual consciousness, which is what we occupy for a while.
Yeah.
So we come from the collective and we return to the collective.
Yeah, it's when Jesus says, I am the vine and you are the branches. I mean, that's how it works. And Rami is a branch of the divine vine, but when the branch dies, the vine continues to branch. So why identify with the branch when in fact, you can identify with the vine? Or I would actually make the distinction. Identify with the branch and identify with the vine, and know that you're both. But one will die, but the other doesn't.
So as you have been following this path and this journey and these learnings and these awarenesses, what have been the things that have been your physical manifestations? What are the things that you find to be important that you accomplish in your time here?